Yeah, I've interviewed Mr. Dalvin, and we went through the whole like Jodeci story.
Yeah, he knows it.
He knows it. And well, I don't know what it was like back then, but eventually Casey was, kind of a, loose cannon, to say the least. Like during those times, were there any really crazy stories with Jodeci?
Yeah, touring. I used to think, you know what? I'm gonna be famous singing. I said I'm gonna love the women, because I love beautiful women. And being on tour, I was like, you know what, man, I'm gonna have some fine women. I'm gonna do this. And being on tour, the type of women and the caliber and the amount of women that came to the after parties at the hotels, I can't even imagine. You can't even imagine the that type of energy, and it actually scared me. You know what I mean? It was just so much. It was so overwhelming. I was like, I didn't want anybody to ride in my car back to the hotel. I was like, it's just too much. It was so much. They were on fire. They were like, phew, not Michael Jackson, but they were like a rock group, like the Rolling Stones of their time in terms of R&B. And just having that energy around, it's just like it wakes you up, it makes you cautious. You're either gonna be cautious, or you're either gonna go full head in and destroy yourself. And I chose to be cautious, and yeah, thank God I did.
Well, who else was on the label at the time? Because
Oh
I mean,
man,
I'm looking at the Uptown roster. Was Mary J. Blige there?
Mary J. Blige, Heavy D, Father MC, Lil Sean, um,
I'll be sure.
I'll Be Sure, Christopher Williams, Horace Brown, who used to feed me. Thank you, Horace Brown. I was hungry once everything, didn't pan out with the music right away. Horace Brown was established, and he would make sure I ate. He'd come and, every now and again I'd come to the hotel, man. Maybe if you need a shower, take a shower, get some food, and just rest. So that was really, really appreciated.
Was Guy over there at the time?
Guy, yes, Guy was definitely there. This is, man, you couldn't ask for a better label. Like, here I am on this major label. This little dude from North Carolina who had a dream, man. And, thanks to Mark Sparks and the people who had that influence and caught the ears of Andre Harrell. Russell Simmons came to the showcase. It was a showcase I did when I earned the respect and got the ears of Andre Harrell and those guys. So the D&D
Right.
Studios.
Mm.
Yeah, you know that studio.
Of course.
That's
of
the
course.
grimiest. That's the grimy. They still have the glass. I think the glass that, what is it, Premier's room, DJ Premier's room, with the broken glass. It was broken probably by, who knows, LL or anybody. But it was still in the floor. Yeah.
Mm. Right. Was Lost Boys over there at the time?
Lost Boys. Yeah, man. Yeah. Huge fan of the Lost Boys.
Oh yeah, I interviewed Mr. Cheeks. Hell of a story.
Yeah, man. He's had a journey.
Yeah.
Loved him.
And I mean, wasn't Biggie originally signed to Uptown for like a single or something like that? Because Puffy eventually took him and started Bad Boy, but wasn't he part of Uptown?
Craig Mack, I think he was eventually, initially going to take Biggie through Uptown and Craig Mack, and it just didn't work out. And prior to me getting there, he was already, scheduling his departure to go to, I think it was Arista.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, that didn't work out, but he took it. He was leaving in the building. Always excitement when he was in the building. Even when Andre was in the building, it was a very exciting building.
Right, because from what I understand, Puffy was an intern.
Yeah.
At Uptown.
Mm-hmm.
Andre Harrell was the one that kind of discovered him and brought him on. And I had heard he got the name Puffy because he would get so angry when like he wouldn't get his way when it comes to certain musical decisions or whatever, that he would just get all puffed up.
Yeah.
And they started just calling him Puffy
Puff,
as a joke.
Yeah, Puff Daddy. Yeah.
And it's stuck.
Yeah.
Would you see these kind of back and forths between Puffy and Andre?
You know what? In the hallway, it was kind of playful, but it was serious. But you know, but he was always leaving. He was always on his way out the building or back to his office. But I never saw anything that was like totally ignorant, or you could always tell that there was love and respect there.
Yeah.
And I was just a little peon, so I was sitting in the offices like, yeah, is that Heavy D? Wow, Mary? Okay. So I'm just taking it all in. I'm like, dang, I can't believe it. I'm in here.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for your loss. I never really got to meet Andre Harrell or Heavy D, but they both passed. With Andre just passing recently. Both of them way too young. Just sad.
Way young, man. And Andre was such a visionary. He was a great guy. A lot of the visions that Puff and Tim Dog and all these people, all these groups, Andre had a lot to do with the styling. He made sure that we thought about being classy, making it hot, keep it sexy, keep it hot, and you're selling music to the women. The men gonna buy it. And he was a visionary. He was very good with numbers. He could tell you 13% of like $18 billion just with his mind. He was really that gifted with numbers. Yeah, I saw him do it.
Well, here you are at the Superstar label with Mary J. Blige and Guy and Jodeci and everyone else. And you drop your first album, Ecstasy, and it doesn't even make it to the Billboard charts.
You know what? It was never really official release, to be honest with you. I hear a lot of different stories. The album was never released. It went from Uptown, which was housing it, and when Uptown and MCA had a disagreement, I wasn't able to go with Andre at the time. He was starting Harrell Entertainment at Sony. And so they sent me to MCA directly. I believe it was Hank Shockley and Heavy D, who had a hand in my project, who was supposed to be my A&R. But the album was already finished. The track masters had done it. It was a complete album, which was great. But when it's not your baby, you don't have a connection to it. So I think by them having their own artists and own visions that they were really in love with, I was just pretty much shelved. And so Andre Harrell tried to get me from MCA to Harrell Entertainment, and we tried to work that deal out, and that didn't work out. And there it is, my second record deal. And here I am on another shelf. So, yeah, it became frustrating.
Right. So the first album doesn't properly come out.
No.
And then you joined Soul Life, which ended up going bankrupt as well.
They went bankrupt because they stopped spending money, but they had enough to spend. They could still be spending now. They were very well financially stable. These guys were from India. Some Indian guys from India and from London, and they were in the oil business. And eventually, they stopped funding Soul Life. I think once Sunshine Anderson went, her song was the #1 song in the whole world, in the country, and it was so big, it was huge. Heard It All Before, produced by Mike City, under Soul Life, which is Mark Sparks' label and brand. It was so huge. At that moment, I was scheduled to come out after Sunshine, but I got a call from D'Angelo, because at that moment when I did my first album, Ecstasy, he was working on Brown Sugar. So Kadar Massenberg would come to my sessions and play D'Angelo music for the track masters, and the track masters would play, Tony Pope would play music for Kedar. Like, all right, y'all got that? we got Anthony Hamilton and listen to this. And so it was almost like a battle, in studio battle. It was the first verses I've been a part of. And once my album didn't come out, D'Angelo, who was then managed by Dominic Trenier, inquired about me. Dom reached out to me in the middle of me working on my album for Soul Life and say, hey, D'Angelo wanted to know, would you sing background? Go on tour and sing background. At the end of the Voodoo, at the end of Brown Sugar, going into the Voodoo album. And I talked to Soul Life, talked to the heads of Soul Life and Mark and those guys. I said, hey man, this really make me a better artist. Would y'all please grant me these couple of months or however long to go on tour with him? I said, it'll make me better and I have exposure and it'll be a bigger story. And they agreed. So here I am, took a departure from being an artist and became a background singer and toured extremely toured properly the world. That was a whole nother beautiful amazingness.
Yeah, and I guess Bilal and Angie Stone were background singers as well.
Yes, yeah, that's where I first met Bilal. He was probably 17 years old or something. 18 tops. Really Bilal style, just kind of nonchalant. And Bilal is actually, he plays brass. He's really talented. Keys and brass. And Angie Stone was on the last end of that tour. And I remember doing the Brown Sugar stuff. And Bilal would sing the high notes, rightfully so. And Angie had the tenor. And I would do, that's when I met them. And then Karen Bernard came in and swapped out Angie Stone. I think that had ran its course. And we started all over. And by the time Voodoo came in, we were doing auditions. And I brought in a young lady by the name of Shelby Johnson, who sang for Prince the last 8 years of his life. She was the Voodoo doll. And Jack King, who went off to sing with Justin Timberlake for about 7 years, 8 years. So I brought in these guys. Well, actually I brought in Shelby and we auditioned Jack King, and we were a powerhouse at that moment.